Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unleash with Megan, the podcast where we dive deep into the art and science of overcoming challenges and achieving remarkable results. I'm your host, Megan Rovnak, with over 30 years of experience being dedicated to helping individuals unlock their potential and transform their lives. That is what this podcast is all about. We bring people on to share with you their experiences, the things they've overcome, and the remarkable results that they've had. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Derek Morgan. He's head of affiliates and partnerships at Refer It. If you haven't heard of Refer It, you're going to hear about Refer It today, and then you're going to go check it out because it's really amazing. Derek is the founder of referralmarketingideas.com. He's also the creator of the referral marketing formula that you'll hear about today, which is fantastic. And as head of affiliates and partnerships at referit.ai. Sorry, not .com.ai, my mistake. Derek's mission is to empower 1 million. Anybody out there that needs to learn how to set high goals so they have big things to achieve that gets them up every morning to be excited about, he's the kind of guy that you want to take a cue from. Empower 1 million businesses with tools, strategies, and mindsets needed to generate more referrals, deepen business relationships, and grow profits without relying on cold outreach or paid ads. If you're tired of the cold outreach, you're like, ugh, the paid ads aren't doing anything. Here's somebody that you need to listen to. So I'm so excited. Please join me in welcoming Derek Morgan. Derek, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Megan, thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited about having this conversation. Yeah.
Fantastic. Me too. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of how you got where you are and why this is important to you?
Okay. I guess I have squirrel brain, right? I When I was younger and even right through my career, I found myself actually jumping industries. I found myself on a cycle of about every 4 years changing industries, and being in sales, I was having to create networks and build relationships and learn new things and learn new ways of talking, lingo, and that sort of thing. So I found myself constantly transitioning. And yeah, during that time, I was always basically starting from scratch, and we typically didn't have a marketing budget. And we had to go out and just find our own leads and do our own sales and build our own pipeline. So I had to get really good at networking and connecting with people. So that's a bit about the background, and I've had to do that. I've done that, not had to do that. I chose to change industries fairly dramatically. So I went from the mining industry to financial services to retail sales to back into financial services, then enterprise technology, startup SaaS, um, scale up SaaS. So I've worked for VC acquired companies. So I guess I've had a big jigsaw puzzle of pieces that have brought my career together. And throughout that, it's always been about people and relationships and networking. So yeah, that's the
So when
backstory.
you were talking about, absolutely, when you were talking about, going from industry to industry and having to reinvent your networks in each industry and the work that you were doing, one of the things you just said that I love that I think people don't always realize is how extraordinarily important marketing is, right? Because how is it that we don't realize that the marketing is so critical?
Yeah, it's the marketing and it's the relationships, right? I guess marketing is critical, but not all marketing, as you know, not all marketing's created equal, right?
Right.
So and I'll be interested to get your perspective on this. One of the things that we're seeing in the marketplace right now is lots of people are doing lots of marketing, but it's expensive, it's complex. The goal line or the the winning post is always changing and shifting because there's a lot of fad marketing and everybody's jumping on the current fad, and then that grows old. It has a use by date, and then it's the next thing that gets attention, and you've got to be constantly shifting. So if you've got big marketing budgets and the like, you can still you have the ability and the teams and the money to shift, but it's still painful, right? Because I've worked with multi-million dollar businesses running multi-million dollar enterprise budgets, and they have the same problems that small business and medium-sized businesses have. It's just on a bigger scale. So the context of, I guess, where I'm always coming from, it's sort of like the advocate for the SMB SME businesses, and I predominantly work in the B2B space. So that, just to give some context, I mean, B2C, I'd love to sort of take this down a partnerships route at some point, but B2C partnerships are affiliates and centers of influence. And for SMB, SME businesses, it's more about who are you networking with, who's within your client base, who's within your business networking connections, those sorts of things. So coming back to the marketing side of things, there's ad marketing, and then there's network building networks or business development through networking, and they're very different. And one of the things I think a lot of businesses of all sizes miss is this ability to take networking and getting referred leads organically, which is very different to actually doing, say, referral marketing, which is basically being able to build referred leads on demand with a system and a process that's scalable and duplicatable, that your marketing and sales team can leverage, which doesn't require ad dollars. So we're all about how do you get more business consistently without having to spend, go and buy ads and contribute to Google and Facebook's budget.
Right. They're doing all right. They're good.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
fantastic. So you talked a little bit at the beginning also about you had these experiences each time you would go in and you would have to build out this network. What were some of the like frustrations and lessons that you learned? Frustrations you had, lessons you learned, and then actions that you took.
Yeah, I guess the the frustrations were always, prior to doing what we're doing now, the frustrations were always that we were doing this whole network building intentionally, but we'd never really systemized what we were doing, sat down and focused on what we were doing and how could we do it better, right? And I guess this comes down to a lot of the frustration where business owners and sales teams are going out to this, that, and the other networking, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then they're going to networking online, then they're going to industry events, and then they're on LinkedIn, and they're doing all of this networking. So they're busy and or potentially burnt out doing it, but they're not getting the results that they maybe want. And it's typically only a few tweaks in process that actually moves them from activity that's frustrating them to activity that's getting results, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we focus on it. And Mike, the founder of Refer It, and myself, Mike and I have known each other for over 25 years. We came together in the financial services industry, and we both had a networking business development background, and so we bounced off each other and collaborated with each other and learned from each other over that time. And over the years, when we've moved into technology development in different areas, it's always been, referral marketing is a really big opportunity for businesses. They don't do it well. We should build some technology that helps systemize the process. Therefore, you can get duplicatable and scalable results. And that's effectively how Referit's evolved. It's a piece of a platform. It's not a piece of technology. It's actually a platform and a network ecosystem, but it's all about private networking, right? There's plenty of places where you can go and scrape directories and grab cold data from LinkedIn and start doing this outbound cold outreach. There's plenty of opportunities to do that. But I think whilst there's a lot of talk about business networking and networking in general in the marketplace, there's not a lot of conversation going on right now in the SMB SME area around how do you use referral partnerships to grow together, right? To build business. And when you focus on that and when you have a process for that, then this is where you get that ability to systemize and then have predictability around using referral marketing as opposed to getting referred leads as a growth strategy. Once you get that right, you can scale based on how well you can deliver and fulfill at the back end from a you know from a capacity point of view. So you can grow on demand.
Oh,
Um,
that's a great phrase. Grow on demand.
yeah, and that's liberating. With the craziness that's going on, you know, in the marketplace at the moment, and with what AI is, the impact AI is having on content volume,
Mm.
it's lifted the bar. Used to be that if you were a subject matter expert and you put out great content and you went to there was an entry level barrier to entry where people had to actually take some effort to get their IP together and then get it out to the market at scale. Now that competitive advantage is disappearing with AI, but it's also opening up opportunities for small to medium sized businesses in and around their ability to actually leverage their relationships as opposed to relying solely on what they can generate from the marketplace through advertising. So
So you talked about systematizing and scaling based on sort of that systematization. I don't know if I said that right. Could you just talk a little bit more about that? Like how would somebody systematize?
yeah, well, we had to think about that right from the start with building the technology because we had these processes we were going in, and the tech our processes evolved from the work we were doing in the financial services sector. So Mike and I were both working in B to B2B consulting in and around business succession. So that's where you've got business partners working together and they've got equity in the business. And when one partner leaves the business for one reason or another, it's like it's a really complicated, messy divorce, right? So when you're doing planning around that, there's a whole lot of advisors that sit around the client. So the client, we always said, sits at the center of the universe, but they don't sit there in isolation. So in the financial services context, they've got general insurance brokers, life insurance brokers, investment advisors, share brokers, accountants, solicitors, and then they've got everybody that services their business all sitting around them. So that's their network, that's their personal ecosystem. So when we were working with those clients on these complex consulting gigs, we'd have to be liaising with all of these people and bringing them all together. And working deeply as a trusted advisor within that network then allowed us to actually go and have a conversation with the accountant, the solicitor, the insurance broker, etc., about how can we help some of their other clients because they're experiencing the value we're delivering for their current client. And I think that's a really long-winded way to say most businesses are missing that concept at the moment because they're going, got the new client, bang, next, let's go and find the next new logo, as opposed to, as part of their process, just having some triggers to focus on who are their vendors, suppliers, trusted advisors that ideal client works with. What associations, membership bodies, communities, online, offline, are they involved in? And then how do you have a conversation with that client around engaging with some of those people? Because your current best clients have sitting within their network your next best client and your next best referral partner. But I think, we're so busy chasing the butterflies with the net that we're not focusing on the gold that's actually sitting within our existing businesses. So I think I think I did the ADHD thing and ran down a rabbit warren there. So I'm not sure whether I answered your question
You did.
properly.
Yeah, that's you just walked through it. They have their ideal client and then they work to understand that ideal client's network, different kinds of network can be vendor network, client network. And then that last part was the part I was actually going to ask you about how to have a conversation with that client about their network or how to reach their network through the clients to see who else you could help.
Yeah, well, that's where we're getting into the partnering. that's where we're getting into the partnering process, which is the heart of what we do. And I guess before we jump there, there's probably one other question that came up earlier that I didn't really cover off on. When we created technology, just having a just having technology in and of its own right, we knew from past experience and past SaaS products that we'd built that technology doesn't sell itself, and technology in and of its own right is not the answer. So we needed a way to talk about the value we were delivering through Refer It. We needed a way to talk to the marketplace about that. So we then said, okay, how do we reverse everything all the principles and strategies we put into the product and to develop the workflows and processes? How do we talk about that in the marketplace? And that's where we came. I created the referral marketing formula, which is a, a follow a paint by numbers process of focusing on the things that you need to focus on to be partner ready and build referral partnerships and start to engage more effectively. So we then bookended the process, and then you come in as a business owner, or your advisory team comes in and helps you with the message to market and identifying who your ideal customers and partners are if you need support with that. But we get you focused on thinking about who is your ideal customer, who is your ideal partner, and then how do you then connect, communicate, and collaborate with more partners so that you get referrals at scale, right? And by at scale, I mean, and you may have experienced this, clients and customers, most businesses get referrals organically in ones and twos.
Mhm.
If they have partner relationships at all, they typically are frustrated by the fact the partners are not referring more business to them.
Mhm.
There's a couple of reasons for that. There's typically 5 challenges most businesses have when they're business networking. Is they're not clear on their ideal customer profile. I'm doing that to death. They don't have clarity around their elevator pitch, their 30-second pitch, 45-second pitch, whatever it is. It's very much industry and product focused. They don't talk about the value and who they're serving, and they're not narrowly focused on who the ideal customer profile is. That when they're talking at networking events, then they're not training people how to refer them properly, and then they're typically not following up because they've got all these fragmented processes that they're networking in, because every networking community that they go to has a different process, and it's typically a manual follow-up. So they're the problems we help fix with the technology and our frameworks, and then it's just about the businesses getting their message to market right. So now I know I did run down a rabbit warren then.
That was a good one, though. I was talking about the question that I asked, which that is actually the foundation to the answer of the question that I asked, which is how do you have that conversation? What does that conversation look like when you're trying to learn how to have that communication with an existing client about their network and potential opportunities there?
Yeah, it's about not for us what we find works really, really, not just us, for our clients as well. What we find works really well and takes the pressure off a referrer is when you're not actually asking for your next new client. When you actually have a partner framework and you go to your client, and when you're going to your client, you know exactly who you're asking for, right? Because you know their business, you know their supply chain, you know who the vendors are. If you don't, you can ask. You can have a conversation around that. Right? You can have very open conversations with good clients and find out who's in their network, and look for an introduction to a partner as opposed to asking them to put you in touch with somebody that you're going to go and actually try and sell your end product to, because that's always a lot harder, and their personal brand is tied to them introducing you to a friend. Now, if you've got a really good, I'll caveat all of this with, you've got to have a refer. This will only work for you if you have a referable business. If you've got good products and services, you're delivering on your promise, great, tick. You're a long way to being a referable business. if you're not delivering on your promises, if you don't have a good delivery method, if you're always fighting fires, there's other things in your business you need to fix before you go trying to use referral marketing as a strategy and partnerships as a strategy, because you're going to do a lot of work and then people are going to get frustrated with your delivery and then they're not going to use you again, right? So that's the caveat. Um, when you're when you're looking when you're having a conversation and you're looking for a referral partner, an introduction to somebody that you can add value to them and their clients and add value through them, that takes a lot of pressure off. And it's going, oh yeah, I'll introduce you. I just want to go. I'm looking for a partner. Megan, the partner that I'm looking for is somebody who coaches business coaches. Like, is there anybody in your network that you know that coaches business coaches? That's an ideal customer for us. Or, hey, Megan, I know that you do a lot of networking. You know what we do. The people I'm trying to connect with right now is actually business network leaders, because we can add a huge amount of value to their clients through them, and that way everybody wins. So is there any? So you've been, I was role playing there, but
Yeah.
you're being very very targeted. It takes a lot of pressure off you, and you're just going to have a conversation. You're not necessarily trying to sell that person something, or if you are trying to sell that person something, you can use your partnership model to do cold outreach on LinkedIn, but it's very targeted. And when you lead with value, conversations move fast. So, um, an example, I'm currently writing a piece on right now. I'm actually going to present it in an hour or so to our internal group. But I've had multiple conversations in the last 2 weeks with small business owners who are paying thousands and thousands of dollars for complicated LinkedIn outreach solutions and to create demand services. And I go, how many clients do you have capacity to deliver on? If you got all the new clients you possibly could handle right now, what's the number? One guy said 6. Guy I spoke to this morning, earlier this week, said 12 clients. It's like, um, the another guy is like 50, and he already had 100 clients in his active paying client base. I go, you don't need scale marketing to hit those numbers. You don't need sophisticated marketing campaigns. You just need to know exactly who you're looking for and go and have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but a value driven conversation, right? Because if you lead with value, conversations happen fast. So, as an example, last Friday, I got earlier in the week, I got a referral to somebody that I knew on LinkedIn. I'd been following him. Um, I know his business. I reached out to somebody in my network who's a trusted referrer of mine. I went, hey, can you, I'll call him Jim. Hey, Jim, can you introduce me to James? Yes, used our system and model to introduce me to James. A couple of days later, I've got a meeting with James. I meet with James on the Friday, and I'm going to stick with the J theme here. So I meet with James on the Friday. First meeting, he knew of who I was because I had some interaction with him on LinkedIn. We had a 30-minute conversation. At the end of that 30-minute conversation, he's then introduced me to the CEO of a large multinational business. On the Monday, the CEO booked an appointment directly into my calendar with no phone call. And on the Tuesday, I had the meeting with that CEO, and there's a follow-up meeting coming. They're all first meetings with no phone calls. The reason that you can move from first introduction to meeting with the CEO within a 24-hour business period or 48-hour business period is through trusted networks. It's the borrowed trust that comes with working with the right people. Um, and every good business owner has the right people in their network. It's just about taking time away from the coalface and the busyness to actually just focus on the things you're doing right now. And it's not a big change management thing. It's not a big process implementation thing. It's like, I know, what am I doing now? And what are the steps within what I'm doing now that I can actually extract a lot more value out of my effort? That's really what we're talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have any like crazy stories or experiences where you were just like, I cannot believe that's how that went? And that was part of what led you to where you are now?
Yeah. Look, a few years back, I was working for a SaaS startup company, and we were obviously networking with a lot of other technology companies and consulting firms. So I actually facilitated a meeting between a technology company and a consultant and got them into a boardroom and sat around, had a conversation about what collaboration looked like. And then everyone agreed it was a match made in heaven. They worked really well together. I left the room, left those guys to their own devices, and then 2 years later, I actually ended up going to work for the technology company full time, and you know the usual SMB experience. Here's your computer, here's your login, here's the CRM, go. Um, and I actually saw the consultant that I had introduced to this business 2 years earlier. Looked at the CRM, crickets, nothing had happened. So I went and had two coffee meetings with him, and within 6 months, that business had written $11.2 million worth of contracted business through the consultant. So if you work backwards, the opportunity cost of them not following up the previous 2 years is like 44 plus $1 million. So
That is a big deal.
yeah, but the thing is, it's people get distracted. It was set up and given to them on a platter, but nobody followed up. And this is, I think, a big part of the problem of what people are doing in their networking. They're not they're making good connections, but they don't have a process for effectively following up, despite what they're doing with their CRM.
Yeah, so I think we all have lessons, and some of them are more expensive than other lessons. But when you can say something like, well, we had a $44 million lesson, that's
Yeah,
not something that you're going to forget. I hope. I hope that's not something people take lightly or forget quickly.
yeah, and the point there, um, Megan, is that the opportunity cost was sitting in their business unidentified for 2 years. That same process is happening in every business right now. There's opportunities sitting within their existing business, and because they don't have a mechanism for measuring the opportunity cost, it's invisible to them, but it's there.
That's fantastic. Wow, what a story. I love the way that you explained the value of having that conversation, but I really like how we ended up coming back to scalable on demand because you gave some fantastic examples of people who are like, oh, I got to do all this work and all this advertising and spend all this money to get five more clients, six more clients, 20 more clients. Like if you need to get 130 more clients or that certainly 1,000, right? When you're hitting four digits, okay, right? There's something that you need to be doing there. But when you're talking about handful or a couple of handfuls of clients, especially, you don't necessarily need to be doing all of that, spending all of that ad money. And I've absolutely heard of the people, the LinkedIn people that you're talking about that charge all of this money and they're promising you that they'll get all these calendar appointments for you and they'll be really credible leads and quality leads. And then you spend the money and you're disappointed. If you spend the money and it works out, okay, fine. But
Yeah,
I've heard more stories of people that have spent the money and been disappointed than people that have spent the money and been really satisfied with that. So being able to understand what you need and where you're going and what you're doing and being able to communicate it effectively and succinctly to other people is a point that you made that I thought was really, really critical. I hope
yeah,
people are taking away a lot of nuggets from this because I know I am.
yeah. And that's a really good point that you make, right? It's the right strategy for the right business at the right time. So it's like you can create all of this inbound activity, and even if it's the right traffic, it's the right qualified people. If you're sending them into a funnel and a process where your messaging doesn't match or your value proposition and offer just doesn't appeal to them, it doesn't matter that you've got right traffic. And then comes flip side of that is you can have a great funnel and a great offer, and you send a lot of volume and traffic to that's the wrong traffic. it's still not going to work for you. And then you go and try and fix things that are not broken,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Because you think, oh, my offer doesn't work. No, your traffic's bad. You're trying to talk to the wrong people.
Hmm.
And to the flip side, yeah, you've got good traffic, but if your offer's not appealing and compelling, then
That's not going to work either.
that's the thing that needs to be fixed. But back to your point, you've got to have the right strategy for the right business and the right business size and the right and for the outcome. And yeah, if you're a scale business and you've got your funnel and messaging right and your value proposition and offer right, then yeah, you can go and spend ad dollars and drive a lot of traffic and make it work for you. But you've got to have all those pieces of the jigsaw puzzle
Yeah.
in place. For small business, they're out there networking now. They can get a better result from it and build those partnerships in the process so that you get that one to more referral as opposed to one referrals that are happening organically.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. We're almost out of time. So, any final points that you really want to hammer home, or if people want to learn more about this, where would they go?
Yeah, if you search for referral marketing ideas on LinkedIn, or if you go to referralmarketingideas.com, if you want to have a look at Refer It, Megan, I'll get you to drop a link in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Fantastic. We will do that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And I really hope that people will go to your website and learn about this, because there's sort of the traditional way that people think it's supposed to be done or it has to be done. And you describe that very well, right? Which can be painful, time consuming, and you don't understand what's not working and why it isn't working. And a little bit of knowledge, and I feel like they got so much just in this little bit of time. They'd get so much more if they go look, but just a little bit of knowledge can make such a huge difference. So, really appreciate you sharing your knowledge today and taking the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, as always, thank you so much for joining us on Unleash with Megan. I hope you have a magnificent day.